Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 9 of Morning Matcha. I'm here today with Lacy Phillips, the founder of Free and Native and a manifestation advisor.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So thanks for driving all the way down here and spending the afternoon with us today.
I'm so excited. I've never been to Laguna. It's beautiful.
It's perfect because the weather right now makes it even more like special. I love when the fog's in and
you guys have the marine layer.
Yeah, you'll have to kind of drive around.
I know. You have to tell me the good spots to check out here and eat.
Yeah, I'll share that with you. Well, I'm super excited to, obviously we've met plenty of times and seen each other, but I've never actually gotten a chance to talk to you about Free and Native and how you got started with it. And just like we were talking about earlier, the iterations of like growing it and where you're at now with manifestation. What do you refer to yourself as?
I'll kind of pick those layers apart. So when it first started, which is a story I think a lot of people have heard me tell, but I had left a job that was really toxic, and it finally hit my threshold of self-worth breaking point, because I believe that what we make in money is equatable to what we believe we deserve in self-worth on a subconscious level. And so when I left...
That's what you believe...
Yeah, that's what I teach people when it comes to money. You know, that's how we sort of manifest. It's one of the components of manifesting money and attracting money is it's all belief, self-worth based.
Yeah.
And so what actually prompted a lot of that for me was when I left this particular job that was very toxic, I just said to the universe, I'll never, ever work for another person again, ever. And I have $4,000 in savings and like 3 months of unemployment coming in. So I'm going to wait. You show me what I should do. And I made a list, and I had clues that it was like, can't remember now, but it was like organic food, white walls. It was people that treat me well, this amount of money a month. And I just connected those dots and threw that list out. And then I said, I'm going to sit here until you show me signs. And I had 3 different people from 3 different complete scenarios and groups say, have you seen that blog, My New Roots? Have you seen that blog, My New Roots? And so I finally checked it out, and just the way intuition happens for me is it downloads through my spine. And I went, okay, I hear you. I guess I'm going to start a blog. Yes, I'll listen and I'll do it. And I had a blog actually before that was quasi known. It was poetry. So it was,
beautiful.
poetic sketches. So I understood how to navigate the territory of a blog, but I didn't understand what that meant as a business. So I just trusted that. And I knew at the time I was sort of the holistic go-to for my whole community and friends. So I thought I would save a lot of emails by just sending them all a link when they would ask questions. I'm sure you can relate to that in ways. So I launched it, and right away it caught traction. And I think for me, there may have been other ones that existed, but I didn't know of them. There weren't any other modern holistic blogs. They were very fitness or very granola.
Yeah.
And so having also had a design background, I just knew that I could kind of fit that mold with a different eye and a different voice. So I launched it, and at first it was just fully holistic living. It was anything, remedies, recipes, anything I was into and interested in, products. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know any other bloggers. I didn't know that I knew that people were bloggers and had businesses, but I had no concept of what that meant.
That's almost better.
It was so blind. And I think that I tell people this because I was so steeped in my authenticity with it just was wildfire. People heard about it. They knew about it. It was getting traction because I was so authentic. It's actually whenever I've tuned into what other people are doing and, sunk into the subconscious, should I do that too? I talk about this a lot too in the blog when it comes to copying, but that would stop the momentum because I was getting out of my authenticness and not trusting. And so then it took a lot of iterations. I went into herbal school and I started to help.
Well, hold on. Let's get back on like some dates though. Like when did you get that feeling?
So I got that, I think it was 2014. Okay. And I think when I finally put the first blog post out that was, I think, I want to say September.
Wow.
2014. Yeah.
So cool.
And I was so nervous about it and so worried that people would think that I'm crazy where I come from. So I remember like there wasn't an announcement at the time. My ex and I shared an Instagram account.
Aww.
I didn't, have a release around it. I just sort of started putting it on my personal Facebook and out on our joint Instagram, and it just, people tuned in. It was crazy.
Yeah. And then how did you like get into that just to begin with, like holistic living?
It's always been my geek out thing since I was little. And I was so fortunate because I don't identify with a lot of people in my family deeply. Like we're close and we love each other, but I'm definitely the alien in the family. I'm beating to my own drum. And I had a grandmother who was the same. And she was one of my primary caretakers growing up. And so I have all of her books on like hypnosis and crystals. And at the time, my grandparents had a second home aside from our ranch. They had it in Santa Cruz. So I spent a lot of time with her in Santa Cruz, and she was into the weirdest, amazing shit. And I just remember growing up that I would have a burn from, heat, and she would put vitamin E on it. It was just very natural and really alternative. And also, aside from that, my mom, I have to credit her a lot as like a true Libra. She was always into mystical things. We always had a family intuitive that she consulted, and she was into tarot and not very much natural lifestyle, but my grandmother was. So it was weird because around 17 at the time, I was living in a very Central Valley town called Modesto. And I was the first person who was out like at 17 trying to find organic food. I was like, it's not even available. I want organic food. And so around 6 months later, I moved to LA, and it was like a mecca because I could do any of that. I was like, like the mothership has
really
landed.
is. Like sometimes we forget we really are.
We're so lucky.
Yeah.
We're so lucky with that. So when I first moved here, I was actually acting. Like I had already landed my first national commercial. I had an agent, and I had that trajectory until I was 25 of acting and modeling. But what was so interesting was I would be preparing sides for a pilot audition, but at a raw food restaurant, way more interested in what the ingredients were doing for my body. And it's just been my geek out. It's always been a thing, alternative lifestyle and spirituality for sure since I was young. Coinciding with that simultaneously, when I was acting, our family intuitive, I consulted her to see how to make money as an actress. I think every artist is trying to control their financial circumstances. And so she had recommended this book on manifestation. And I think I was 17 then. And she said, follow this to a T and you'll start to manifest all of that. And so I did. If you tell me to do something like that, I'm a Capricorn moon. I'm going to figure out every angle and live it out and do it. And I'm hyper controlling. So it was my first rabbit hole down manifestation. And then I went on to The Secret and the Hicks books and all the things. But I realized I was a really good manifester, but never in the ways that they were teaching me. It was a lot of spiritual bypass, a lot of superstition that never worked out. And I think a lot of people in my community can relate to that frustration of really trying all these different superstitious practices to no avail. And that's what actually led me on my own trajectory of figuring out my formula that I teach.
And when you left your job and you had written that list down, that was in your own form of like what you understood?
Yeah. So right around 25, I had what I call an awakening. It's the best way I can put it. I guess it's what people probably mean when they say they woke
crisis.
up.
Yeah.
I was woke. No, I was so like, it was like the first iteration of waking up. But in that same year, it wasn't at the exact same month, but I had a total download. I was like, I'm done with acting. I'm quitting. I'm firing all of my agents. And it was crazy at the time because I had just starred in my first feature film. Like it wasn't a smart move maybe for people who are really following that path, but it just enlightened to me how unhappy I would be, how much further away from myself I would be getting and going. And at the time, it wasn't like deep monetary success, so there was a lot of frustration there. And in that same year, it was the same year that I manifested my apartment in Echo Park for $300. And I manifested my partner at the time down to like long blonde surfer hair, photographer, artist, Parisian mom. I mean, everything on my list.
Wow.
And so at that year, I said, I'm going to toss away all of the superstition I've ever learned. And because I'm so controlling, I'm going to look at what I do, when, and how that always equates to what I want, and that I'm very powerful at it. And so I let go of all of that, like all the vortex, positive vibes, positive thinking. And I was like, no, let's be a mad scientist. And I want to look at what I did when to make this work. And so that was just a secret practice of mine that I really honed in at and got very good at. And through the iterations of the blog, when I was an herbalist and helping and consulting people in that capacity, I also started to private chef holistically for high-end clients in LA.
Oh.
And it was actually one of my actress clients that I would always, it's just my languaging. I'd be like, the universe did this, I manifested that. And yeah, you know, it's just how I speak.
Yeah.
And she was like, I want to try this little, your way that you do this. She's very into it. And I was like, I don't know if I've only done it for me. I have no idea, like thinking that I'm very powerful. I don't know if other people can do
like,
this.
I don't know if it's going to work for other people. It's just,
Yeah.
I have a gift.
Yeah, I'm a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And she started manifesting. And so then I would show other people and it was just like right away they would manifest if they were doing it properly and doing the work involved in it, which we can get into in a minute.
Yes.
That they were starting to, and I was like, oh my gosh, I do know something, or I have a way into this. I mean, it's knowledge that's been around for, at minimum, that we're aware of 5,000 years. You know, it's not like I'm a gift, but I see it in a different way than other people have ever presented it to me. And so the passion started to get louder and louder that I really wanted to put this into the world. But I had probably 2 years to a year that I was closeted with it because I was extra. I mean, that was just next level. I come from like a Republican conservative cowboy town. Like, I was like, I will be an absolute alien if I really put this out there. But finally, everything sort of aligned where, and I say this a lot with the universe, when your resources dry up and everything comes to a halt and you know that there's something greater that's supposed to go out into the world, the universe will do that. It'll take away all your safeties and comforts to push you like a bird out of the nest, where it's like, I've divinely given this to you. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Now go do it, access it. And so I finally jumped off that cliff and put it, and again, it was just like the blog. It was just like, it just took off. Yeah.
And so with the work that I want to get more into the superstitions and like what you are referring to.
Totally.
With that, 'cause that's really interesting.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that and then.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I could go on forever. Like you name something you've learned about manifestation and I'll debunked it for the most part. So like the true principle around the superstitious bit that I really try to empower people with is you don't need anything but yourself. You need zero spiritual materialism. They're beautiful enhancements like crystals and whatever, but you need nothing. You don't need any crutches, period. You're capable of this within yourself. So that's number one to the component. Number two, what I started to learn was that and it's not new information, this has been around forever, but the popular, the pop culture around manifestation, spiritual bypass manifestation, is that we tend to manifest from our thoughts, which is absolutely impossible, right? We think in such polarity all day long. Our life would be a shit show if we were that powerful.
Totally.
So I don't
always
believe
like, oh no, I'm thinking like badly now.
And
it's all going to go to shit. And then,
And we could break that down because that's one very important one to look at. But I'll continue with this and then we'll go back to that trajectory, because if just that alone is so freeing for people. So I believe that we actually manifest from our subconscious beliefs. It's the structure of beliefs that we picked up in childhood from 0 to 14. That whole programming from parental to societal to cultural to peers, everything we picked up through mirror neurons, like basic neuroscience, we imprinted that that's what is true and possible for us. And where we, through shame and pain, picked up that we aren't worthy, that we have to hide that aspect of ourselves on a subconscious level, that's where we have low self-worth. And where we were loved and nurtured for who we were, that's where we have high self-worth. So those are actually what's being projected. And therefore, we're just continuing to receive the same patterns of those projections over and over on a subconscious level. It has nothing to do with our conscious thoughts at all. So breaking that down a little bit, when I started to realize, because I was like everybody else, I think, who's ever been down this path of New Age pop manifestation, I would try so hard to stay in the vortex, think positive. I mean, turn the radio station to a happy one change my vibes.
No rap music.
My frequency. Like all this stuff. And it didn't really do anything, right?
No,
because on a subconscious level in ratio to what I was calling in at the time, I had low self-worth around. I didn't believe I was worthy. I believed I was unworthy of it. Therefore, until we go in on an unconscious, subconscious level and grow those beliefs and reprogram them. So when literature talks about get in vibration with what you want, all that it's saying is have your self-worth on a subconscious level align with what you're wanting. So if we were to break that down, say, I always refer to relationships. I feel like it's the easiest, relatable model for people to look at, because we've all mostly sort of engaged or been in them. So say you're calling in a partnership, right? And you keep receiving emotionally unavailable person after emotionally unavailable person. They're different bodies that seem like they have different worlds and different things about them, but they won't commit, right? Let's just say that that's the one thing we're looking at. On an unconscious, subconscious level in childhood, we picked up for whatever reason we're unworthy of that commitment, whether it was enmeshment with our parents or detachment, abandonment, there's so many layers of what that could be. And that's where I come in and help people really pinpoint those of what needs shifting. Until those grow up to being worthy of that lovability, of that deeper commitment, of that connection, it's impossible to manifest that person. It just won't happen. So it has nothing to do with visualizing that you're already with this person, making the bed for two. I'm like, I'm thinking of all
writing
the superstitions.
a letter to your future. Yeah.
Good luck. Great. Whatever. Like, until you believe on a subconscious level that you're worthy of them. So that's one component of it. And so when a lot of New Age pop manifestation culture talks about visualize what you want until it comes. I mean, that's a fine practice, sure, but it wasn't doing anything for me. And I think a lot of people have probably felt the downfalls of that, of putting so much energy into it and not receiving. And so I actually started to learn that based on that model of belief that we picked up, let's say the structure of belief, we grew up believing and seeing that something wasn't possible because that's what we're projecting from. So let's take, I always use this example, but let's take that we came into this iteration, this body as an artist. And then we grew up with two banking parents who sees life as practical and that art, will never make you money. It's a hobby. And so therefore you've never actually seen that that's possible. You didn't have any mentors or role models that were successful artists. So your subconscious belief is like, well, art will always be a hobby. Therefore I have to have a practical job. So you can visualize in that state until the cows come home, but not much is going to happen. What actually has to happen is you have to expand your subconscious belief. So therefore, I call them expanders. I actually did a post on the blog recently about this to like really break it down, because it's the second most important component to manifestation is you have to go show your mirror neurons. You have to see to believe what's possible. So therefore, you have to actually take someone who's similar to you or have someone who's similar to you who's achieved what you want and you've seen their success I like to say the subconscious mind is like opening up a clock. You want to see how they did it to show your subconscious that you too, from this particular state, is also capable and worthy of achieving the same thing. That's what starts to create space for that manifestation to come through. So you're really working with the subconscious. It has nothing to do with our conscious mind. And if we go deeper on the spiritual bypass, that's what I call all of this, like think positive, stay in vibration, all of that's just a spiritual bypass. It's actually one of the most limiting things you can live in. That's why so much of my process is debunking this, because I just call that being in your comfort zone, right? If you're too afraid of approaching your negative thoughts or your bad feelings, which I am like the biggest proponent of, like loving those, investigating those, that's where the magic lies, to the low self-worth and the subconscious. But when people are too afraid that engaging in that negativity or those vibes, they're never going to get out of the same handicap level of which they're living, because they're just they're just stuck there in prison. So I'm like a big proponent of just throw it all away, get rid of it.
It's like not wanting to like lift up the rug or couch or look under your bed.
Totally. Absolutely. It's such a handicap.
That's so crazy. I never looked at it that way. I mean, I always knew it's like your subconscious thoughts, but I think even when you know it, it's really nice to have someone like you to guide you through that, right?
Absolutely. And I find with people, so much of my work, and especially I created recently, or this year, I finally created Unblocked. It's a digital workshop, and I made it the most accessible, easy thing to engage in. It's very beta. It's very simplistic, because I wanted there to be an accessible approach to the tools that I prescribe to all of my clients, right? So a lot of them are doing shadow work, inner child work. I mean, I have them really working through the subconscious rejection, shame, low self-worth. That's what they're dealing with on the subconscious level. And so I would always be prescribing this work to people. And then they'd be like, is there just a condensed version of this that I can work through? And it finally clicked that I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I'll put Unblocked into the world. It's super affordable. Anyone can tune in anywhere, and it goes through all of the tools that I prescribe people. So it's like, if you don't have the formula, if you can't work with me, it's your way in to start to investigate what your subconscious limitations are in ratio to that exact thing you're calling in.
Wow.
And that it's hard for people. Sometimes they need guidance to like lift up that rug. There's so much under there. The beautiful thing that I get with so many people are they're like, I had a perfect childhood. And I'm like, no, sorry, nobody did. And you might have had incredible parents, but what about that bully in the 4th grade? Its pain is so subjective, right? Like the more sensitive we are as humans, the more that we close off about us that wasn't loved or accepted or received. And everybody has them, or they would be manifesting what they want. It's that simple. If you're expanded and you're unblocked from those limiting self-worth, whatever loops that are rolling, you connect with what you want. So that's like the beautiful thing when somebody's like, I had a perfect childhood. I'm like, then why don't you have what you want? Like, you're expanded. There's something down there that's projecting that you're not worthy of it.
Yeah. And they're blocking it. So sometimes you literally don't remember.
Yeah. And I have that. It's so common for people to literally check out, leave their bodies, have no recollection. And it's just this, it's a security that we had. It was a protector when we were little.
So you're working with people privately in groups, and you have a digital.
Yeah.
So where is that found, the Unblocked? Is it like its own site?
No. So Unblocked, it's actually like you can find it right on my site, and then it's within my site. So they get a little code to access it, and then they go through it. Like the last one, the one that's current right now, is the Reparenting, which shadow and reparenting are the most important. And I approach reparenting far different when it comes to manifestation than regular reparenting tools out there, because I'm dealing with them creating their most magnetic selves and recreating their most magnetic childhood on a hypnotic state. So it's very different.
What is reparenting? I'm like trying to figure it out in context.
So reparenting, there are a few really notable people in the psychology world who worked with it and developed it. And I mean, many of the psychological stars that we're all aware of came up with it. So there are different trains of thoughts of how to approach it. And I've researched a lot of them and worked through a lot of them myself. And then I started to click with how to take that into the subconscious and reprogram those experiences to create the most magnetic, so that you create the new magnetic neural pathways and circuits around it, and you're projecting from that place. So not only is it a deep healing on a subconscious level, it's also actually literally doing brain surgery to recreate it, to project from that state of being.
So recreating your childhood.
In a way, like for some people, it's a full recreation. For others, it's just like healing things that happened. And it's so wild. Like, I start to post on the, I do a weekly roundup on Fridays on the blog. And if there's a reparenting that I'm telling people about, or I'm sorry, an Unblocked that I'm telling people about, I'll usually post comments from the current one.
Yeah.
And they're just like, this should be a prerequisite before becoming a parent. Like after this one, I call them deep imaginings, what I take people through. After this one, within X amount of hours, this bill that had been like really weighing on me was taken care of. And I just got an unexpected raise at work. Like they're just unblocking right away.
Wow.
And so it's magic to watch that happening for people.
Yeah.
So like with that offering, it's $58, whereas seeing me is $400. So it's like, it's a great way to really navigate yourself. And if you don't have someone, like the beauty of working with me privately when people can, is that I take them through that hypnotic state and I find it for them. I'll be like, that's the block, that's the block, that's the block. That's what needs to be reprogrammed. Whereas it can kind of be a maze when you're doing it for yourself. It's hard for us to see our blinders, but I'm confident that anybody can get there. It might just take more time because that's sort of the way that my brain works and that I see my brain compartmentalizes things. So when I see the trajectory of someone's life or I hear it, and then I take them into the hypnotic state and go deeper, I can just see it right away. It's just a gift that I have. And then I'll be like, that needs more expanding. This needs to happen. This is a lesson and a test, which we haven't even gotten into within my formula. And then it can just become very simple for them. It's way more targeted. And it's a lot like Kundalini in a way. Kundalini, right? It's just working with the subconscious and the hypnotic states and the energy, all the different 10 bodies. And when you do these two in tandem together, it's really powerful.
Yeah, I need to sign up.
Because, well, you should totally. Oh, it'd be so fun for you to do it and get your feedback. But with doing this is a little bit more targeted, whereas when you're practicing Kundalini for a long time, which I'm a huge advocate of, when you can do the targeted with the support of all the things that are happening, it's just like...
Yeah, because this is actually working on that specific thing where, like you said, targeted, whereas that's more general, overall.
Yeah. Which is so magical in itself.
Yeah, I love.
And I think I answered the question. I don't know if I did, but...
No, what?
For the original for Unblocked, I don't remember what it was.
Oh, yeah, we're going to go back to, I don't even know what I asked you.
Carry on.
Whatever.
We're two air signs trying to talk together.
Yeah, we're totally up here. But you were talking about the lessons and stuff. So let's talk about if someone were to come see you in person. You kind of guide them through that. And then so how often do they come?
Yeah. So it's so different for everyone. And I'm not a coach, right? Like it's just not, I'm more of an advisor. I can advise you what to do based on what's lining up for you and knowing the energetics of how the universe works now, like it's the back of my hand. So when somebody comes to me, they'll come with two things that they're calling in, whether it's on the material plane, like let's say a house, an apartment, a raise, a car, like whatever. The material plane. And a lot of them honestly come more of the emotional plane, whether it's relationship or a different relationship with themselves of wanting more self-worth. So they come with two subjects and then it's 75 minutes. So first I'll go through and it's weird how it works for me. It's kind of like therapy. I ask them like all the questions about childhood, everything. And for me, it doesn't really matter what the answers are. I'm waiting the way that I guess I'm claircognizance is the best way to put it, where I don't see, feel, hear. I just get downloads of what I'll be like, that's it. That's the thing. That's the thing is when it happens, I know. So through hearing the trajectory of their life, I can start to piece together and like, that's what's blocking them. This is where they need more expanding. That's why they haven't done it. And those 3 people they dated were all tests, but they don't registered and they're in love with them thinking they're the one, whatever. Like I could just see from like an Aquarian perspective of what is going on there. And then sometimes I'll take them through a hypnotic state to get the deeper, just if I'm like, they're not recognizing and I want the true root, so I'll take them through there and then it's very clear to me of what's going on. And then usually after the first session, it varies so drastically for everyone. And some people I only ever see once because they're just so there. They just needed these little shifts and the guidance on it. And some are very far and they need a lot of support. So from there, I'll end up giving them homework, to actions I need them to take, tools I need them to start to implement and do. But back to how often, I'm very much a proponent of self-empowering. I'm like, I'm actually, as an Aquarian, I don't want people around. I don't want anyone needing anything from me. I want them to go be fully empowered and use me as a bounce board to hold their hand through certain situations. But when I'm working with them, my whole objective is to get them fully self-reliant as quickly as possible. And even I have like a pretty standard rule, and luckily, weirdly, my booking system, not booking system, but the booking rate at this point, I'm booked out until April. So it's like 2018. So people can't even get in, which is like the most beautiful thing for them because they can't have that constant support. They really do have to go inside and down under to really become self-sufficient. But I already have a golden rule where I'm like, I don't even want to see you for 3 months. I need you, because after you start to implement this work and you start to make these shifts, it's all energy. So right away, you're activating a complete shift in energy of what's going on with the universe. And that takes time to watch. You have to see what's showing up in your life, starts to determine how much you've unblocked, how much you've expanded. It's kind of like playing a video game. So we couldn't work together week to week or anything like that. Anyways, they need time to watch. The only way you can truly know what's deeply shifting and expanding is based on what's showing up. And that will take me now into lessons and tests. So the other truly big component of my formula is I believe that the universe sends you lessons and tests. And if we just get down to like the basic of my formula of what started it, the root seed idea where I was like, this is what's going on here. I believe that the universe or your God, your inner intelligence, energy, whatever you're working with, I believe the only energetic movement that's happening is I'll just say the universe wants us to grow into our most whole, authentic versions of self. It's our only journey on this planet, and other things like spiritually to serve or grow into your full divinity, whatever that is. But I believe when it comes to manifestation, that's the only objective, is truly integrating with that authentic essence that we came onto the planet with, that none of us still have today for the most part, because we were raised in a lot of circumstances and a society that needs us to be certain things to be successful, rather than watching us unfold as humans to see what our gifts are and nurturing those into power. If we had grown up that way in all facets, nobody would need my help. You would be perfectly manifesting everything. You would be that full, authentic human. So because I believe that the universe only wants its only objective is to have us grow into this powerful, whole, authentic, integrated space of a being, I believe that everything that shows up in our life is a manifestation. Everything's a manifestation of whether projection of low self-worth or positivity. But I believe that the only things that are coming through are to mirror where we need to shift to grow more into that wholeness. So when you're starting to receive in negative things that you don't want negative, they're really just lessons. They're showing up to mirror on a subconscious level what still needs to be grown. So when you're starting to manifest, let's say that we've seen each other and you're calling in more money, and you've settled for bosses that treat you terribly and pay you really poorly, and it's all stuff you've attracted based on your self-worth and ratio to money. You learned through programming, maybe you grew up in poverty, or maybe you grew up in a mom who didn't trust and controlled money. I mean, it could be so many layers of, you could have had a boss that like sexually abused you at one point. So to you feel it was your fault and now you're not deserving. There's so many reasons for why we could feel that way. But let's say after we've worked together, I've really pinpointed the block. I've showed you where you need to go expand in the next 3 months. And then once you start to do this work and to starting to expand, you're activating your manifestation. It's like, it's as if it's sort of floating around you. It's been activated to kind. It's like when you're sprouting nuts. I don't know. That's the best way I can put it. It's coming. It's growing. It's heading towards you. And the first thing the universe is going to do, if you've settled for those bad bosses many times, it's going to send you a test, and it's testing to see if you're still in your worth, or if you've really grown into this worth and you're not settling for any less.
Yeah, if you're listening.
If you're listening, if you're really actually, if you've integrated essentially. So that could look like a boss that's a shiny, I always call it, it's like a shiny carrot or, you know, something like that, a prize. And it looks like everything on your list a little too good to be true. But you notice when you're in for the interview that people aren't happy, or that she snaps at someone. There will always be red flags. You'll know something. Usually you're going to receive tests after you've started the work. And a big component of starting to really magnetize that closer is you have to pass them. And they get hard because you're definitely being tested if you trust the universe and if you're willing to stay in your power. So that's where I become really instrumental at holding their hand, because I can see those so clearly, especially on the material plane or the emotional plane. So for instance, if I'm working with someone, like let's say, you know, you, and it's money and it's calling in this different job and making your worth, right away you'll just like shoot me an email after we've worked together and I'll be like, nope, that's test. You can't take it. I know it sounds so good. You have to trust that your next thing is coming. And by you trusting is what's going to magnetize it. If you take this, it's fine. It's going to push what you really want back further, and there will be another lesson in it. So you're going to go through like the shit again until you get burned bad enough that you'll never touch that fire. So it's a big component, the lessons and tests. And that's where my set of eyes definitely becomes, on a one-on-one level, like very, very instrumental.
Helpful, yeah. That's beautiful. And I was just thinking, like, then you must get a lot of emails.
Yeah, I do. And it's very specific that I'll open that up. Most of the time it'll have to be a session, because I can only pick up so much energy from the email. Whereas in the session, for the most part, I'll be like, I need to know this, that. And again, I'm just waiting for the download to come. So sometimes I'll get an email and it'll be like a client I've been working with for 6 months, and it's dating. A great example is this. I have this extraordinary Gemini client in New York, and she's so beautiful, and she's in the finance world, and she settled for a really long time in a low self-worth around romances in a lot of different ways that didn't feel good for her. And so I had her get rid of everything, close all the portals, and she got a lot of homework to reprogram and do. And then she had been passing a lot of tests and dating and saying no and no and no to things. And I got this email finally. It was like 6 months later, and she was like, I've had it. Like, because a big rule for me is I don't let people, if it's dating, they can't sleep with somebody for the first 6 to 9 weeks because of so many energetic reasons.
Yeah, for sure.
And to have the clarity to notice red flags, because our biochemistry after we sleep with someone, forget it. They're gone. A lesson, like learn the lesson at that point. We've lost them, you know, and they have to burn themselves again. But so I get this email from her, and she was like, look, it's been dead now. I mean, I passed all the tests. It's been dead now for a month. I haven't had sex in 6 months. Like, and she's a very sexual person. And she,
so
you know,
good.
I know, and all the things. And I know when that's happening, I can read the energy. It's one of the last portions of my formula that I call the magic dark. It's the darkest before the dawn. It's the ultimate, the last test. It's like when all the water has receded back and you think now there's no more water before the wave's about to come in your manifestation. And so if I can clearly read that email, like the energy of it, and I did right away, I was like, please trust me for 3 more weeks and trust yourself. I promise you are there. Like, it's about, the wave's about to crash through. Do not sleep with anyone. Do pass all the tests. This is the last one. The universe is like, have you learned your worth? do you believe you're worthy of this partnership, of this, emotionally available, holding space for you? Do you believe that? Because if you go and sleep with someone right now, just because you need that attention or that stimulation, you don't believe that. And so she held out, and I think it was under a week and a half, the guy was like, bam, came through. And it was so beautiful because it's so beautiful when you watch things from an energetic perspective. Her friend had tried to set her up with this guy like 6 months later, but the universe will never, being in vibration, your worths have to be you have to be in the same worth level. So it wouldn't have ever connected anyway, but you could see that she already started activating it because the friend had wanted to introduce her to him. And then at this point, she ended up meeting him through an app, like Kismetly. And the universe will always do that. It'll part the ways to have you meet however you're supposed to. It's really magical to watch. So it was just like, cool. So I can read those emails, the energy. And if I get ones where it's just not clear, or I know that they're being a little delusional with themselves, where they're like, but he seems so nice and he's the right. And I'm like, we need a session, because I can already feel out just based on like what you were settling before. I can guarantee you this is probably a test, but I need to read it a little bit more, your energy, to see. So it's like tricky, but I have strong boundaries against emails.
I know, because you have to, right?
There's so many that come through. It's wild. Yeah.
How often are you working with people in person?
It varies. So like each day I definitely have different limits, but the thing is that I still haven't mastered is it is so taxing on my nervous system to work with people in person. And I do a lot of it through FaceTime and Skype. Yeah. I actually only allow one day in person because that's a whole different layer of taxing. And I'm trying to crack this code. I mean, I look at it from so many angles of being able to really ground and hold that space. But a part of doing this work for me is leaving my body. And I don't think I'm leaving my body out of like trauma or not being authentic or whatever. I personally, like when I really think about it, I think I'm leaving my body to see from a different view. And so when I leave my body, I just like, after so many people, my eyes will be bloodshot red. I'll have like the craziest tension in my shoulders. Wow. And I have to get a massage every day after I work with people. It's the only thing that will like bring me back fully into my body and relax my whole nervous system. But I know there will be something to crack that at some point, but that's another reason why I've started to offer Unblocked, like the digital workshops and things like that, because I can help so many people so much quicker.
For sure.
And it's so limited what I can do in person in terms of just like the availability at this point.
Yeah, I mean, take advantage of why technology is here. And
again, that's why we were put on the planet during these technological times. Have you done your human design yet?
You're like the third person that said that to me this month.
Oh, you're doing it. Oh, but you have. Do you know? So I have the best girl. If you haven't, really, and she's Aquarius. You'll love her.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I have to meet her. You know who else is into it is Dara Dubonnet.
I don't know. I think.
Do you know she's like the raw food chef?
I don't know her.
That's in Venice. She's like, she doesn't do it. She's just so into it. And then like I've had people come, so I'll have to check it out.
I wonder what you are. If you're a projector, I wonder.
Everyone's been asking me, but it's like either you project or you
generator, manifestor, projector, and then there's two others. There's the generator, manifestor, and one other thing. So my girl Jenna, she's incredible. I actually we're so close now that I'll be like this little alien bit and this and that, and we try to we love, because she's a fellow projector, which I think you might be as well. But one of the things about being a projector, which made so much more sense because human design, for anybody who doesn't really know about it, it's kind of the compilation of all the things. It's like your auric field, your astrology. I mean, so many different, your chakra. I mean, there's just so much. It assesses all at once. And it felt like for the first time, someone fully was seeing me. Yeah. And I've done so many, obviously, like different readings, all the stuff. Yeah. And when she explained to me specific to, I'm an emotional projector, so specific to that, to my birthday, to my stuff, it just finally all clicked. And such a big capacity of being a projector is on the deepest level, we take things in, we take in everybody's energy. And it's so hard for me to fully be in the world. It's the way I like to describe it on an energetic level is like my body is a shell and my own authenticness is a little pearl inside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rare that it feels, because of all the energy coming at me, safe enough for the pearl to just be existing in the world. And I think, and when we get down to that, right, that's just our fully integrated authentic self. If you're really living in that, you can't really be exhausted ever, because you're not having to do a dance to anything, or the energy is going right through you. And I still haven't mastered that, so that I think exhausted.
I feel the same. I've always known I was an empath, and I take things on, and all the work that I've done through, like, I've even done ayahuasca, which it's not for me, but I've I love trying things, but those are the things that always come through for me. It's like, I always say, it's okay, you may go now. That's my thing. And I like let it go, because I know it's other people's things that are coming towards me, so I can't focus on.
Isn't it so? It's so hard to navigate. And I've done all the shit, like the white light around me, the grounding, like forget it, none of it works, nothing yet.
There's this healer on Maui, and I go to Maui every year because my husband's grandma lives there. So it's really fun, and I'll either go visit her just on my own because we're really close, or my husband and I go together. But she lives up the street from this healer who studied under John of God.
Oh, wow.
And every time like I go see him, he's like, imagine white light, all this. But he's the only one that I've really felt like I can't wait every year to go see him. And it's just another thing to like get my energy into balance and stuff. But I don't I used to seek out so much stuff. And what I realized is that when I'm doing that, it's because I feel so out of balance. I want someone else to tell me.
Yeah. Or take care of it for you.
When really it's something that I need to like go in and take a look at. And
totally.
It's interesting, the times where I feel most grounded are the times where I'm like, I'm good. Like, it's just a practice of always opening up and learning, because I'm always curious about new things, and I love that, but not like going overboard.
Totally. I'm so with you. At this point too, I'm also kind of like turned off by a lot.
Totally.
And nothing to do with it. It's just, it's so much information at this point, and I've known it and have it and see it, and it's all around me, that at this point I'm like, can I just go shopping and like eat a hamburger?
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. We're like, seriously, another detox your beauty regimen?
Totally.
Like, no.
Forget it. I'm with you.
Yeah, but then it's so funny. That's how I've been feeling the last couple weeks. I mean, just in general, just reading so much of it, and it's so great. But then this last week, something happened in like my family, and I really saw this person who's 18 years old, like struggling with their space in the world and how they want to be here and show up for themselves and for their family. And it was so beautiful to see how what we're talking about and what we're creating really can benefit people. And it's just because we're around it all the time. We don't really, you see it every day, but when it gets raw and like super real, that's when it's so inspiring to see people actually work through it. And like,
especially at that age, how advanced at that age to be there and really willing.
It was hard. It's hard for me to see people struggle, but it was like when you have the boundaries and when you really have, like 10, 15 years ago, I could never I could never be around someone crying. I'll immediately start crying.
It couldn't be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It was too much.
Yeah. And I was like, blocked and whatever. But as it unfolds and as you work on your outer shell and even though in your situation it was different because the shell was like really protecting, but it's just nice because now I could really sit with it and like I held the space and I saw why I do what I do and why we're doing what we're doing, like sharing this, and how nice it is to have technology to share.
Absolutely. And reach so that anyone can have that accessibility. Yeah. And I do think like that the real magic is in this is like a big part of what my work will be in the new year, is that integration of authenticness. And the way that I have like a few core magnetic people that I'm always really studying, like the very magnetic ones that I see in my practice or my community and friends. And I'll be like, give me your chart. Like I really try to break them down, and I'm just breaking down an essence towards their energetic interactions with things. And so then once I'm studying that, the way it happens is I'll get a download, because I channel what I talk about. I never sit down for a blog post and I'm like, this week's going to be about this. It comes through me and I'm like, all right, this is what I'll share with people, and it's what I'll start to take on. So it's a really weird individual thing and process and trust of that. Like I'm just a vessel that's here being guided to show people this, which is a very similar to message to many people that have had this, but I guess I'm reaching a different crowd or whatever. That's why it's come through. But when I get these sort of new big things that are going to be like, whoa, that's going to really pump people into a magnetic state. Like the big one is authenticness right now. And a big component of that is vulnerability. Just fully like, here I am. I don't like you. I feel like shit today. I like fully no pretense. Like that big.
I love it.
It's a lot. So I'll process and distill it into finally a practice, because it's all energy. And then I'll try it out on me extensively. And then I'll take it to like a few clients of mine who I know really do the homework, so that I can get weekly check-ins to see what's showing up and what's happening. So that'll be fun to work with once I get this all figured out.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel nervous to share with someone a block?
No.
Or that it's maybe they can't handle it, maybe it's too much?
No, because I'm pretty hardcore. Anyone who's ever worked with me in like the capacity of relationships, which is kind of my forte. I mean, I can teach you how to do it all, but relationships, I really understand how to attract in that person. And I'll even say with my women clients, like, I am ruthless. I'm just going to tell you that right now, because I don't want you to waste your time. And I'll also tell them, I advise them. I'm not here to coach them. I advise, like the same way a financial advisor would advise you what to do for your future. It's the same thing I'll do. So I'll be like, you can stay in that and do that, but I just want you to know, like, run into that fire. You better get your heart broken so bad. Don't come back to me until you do, because you cannot manifest the person you want until you really run into that fire, or you're willing to fully let go of that experience. Like, so I'm very ruthless. And I think a big capacity of like being an Aquarius and having a very masculine chart in a lot of ways is that I'm pretty, how do I say it? Like, I'm not gentle, I'm not soft. I am pretty forward about things, but I also have been through so much in my life, and that I understand, well, maybe I don't. I mean, maybe a lot of people would report back differently, but my only objective is for them to have results. So I know how to deliver it in, I think, a very relatable way. There's not much that's come across me in my practice, and I've seen a lot of people's stuff where I haven't been like, trust me, I get it. Like, I understand this. Your husband just walked by.
Oh, okay. Aw, he's so sweet.
So cute.
He's gonna hang out with us after.
Yeah.
That's nice. It's nice to have someone that's gone through, the hardships and can really hold helps hold the space.
Yeah, and just like, you got this. I mean, it'll take some time, but trust me, like, there's so much and I think it's so beautiful that I've been guided to manifestation, for that to be like the gateway in, because really at the end of the day, most of this is just really pumping up your worth and becoming truly authentic and showing up in the world in the exact way you're supposed to be. So people are a lot more, I guess, I've realized that they're a lot more apt to do this work because they want something, at the end there's an end result, but at the end of the day, like, the real beauty of it all is they just become a lot happier with themselves.
Exactly. That's
confident.
The point.
Yeah. So that's been interesting to watch, that I wasn't somebody who was guided to be like, the self-worth person or the what. It's like, no, it's weird. I've been shown how to manifestation, and that seems to be a bigger dangle and a bit to pull people into this work, which at the end of the day is the real gift, that they're just becoming a lot more confident and happier and holding space and better for themselves.
Yeah, and clear.
Yeah.
It's so great. Oh, well, I guess my last question is, what can we like look forward to with Free and Native?
Ooh, who knows? But like, there's so many ideas in the works, but I'm also so exhausted that I'm like, which ones are really going to come into fruition? But the one thing that I am so passionate about encouraging people to do is Unblocked. Like, if there's one thing you can do, and that's why I've made it a price point that anyone can really access, from students to whatever, just because like, if there are two things that you can do to start manifesting today, it's expanding and unblocking on a subconscious level where you're small. If you can do those two things, like, watch, even if it's not poignant, like towards the ratio of what you're wanting, watch what starts to happen in your life and show up. So that's where Unblocked, I can't expand people. They have to go do that for themselves through expanders, but I can lead them through unblocking themselves. So that's like the big thing that
That's
without fail, I'm like, look forward to that. Do that for yourself. And a lot of cool ones are coming up for sure. The next one in December is all money. So it's me teaching everything around money. And again, that's like something that apparently gets people in, but they will learn on a way. I was teaching at Rama the other night. And what I was teaching there was how to mapping why negative things are showing up that you don't want instead of what you do want, like learning that process to really map and find the block on your own. Yeah. And it was so fast. I love those moments, seeing it in real time with people, because the whole thing was so full where you just see like, aha, oh my God, because of this like one thing when I was a kid, this happened. I'm just manifesting this over and over and over again. And it was really amazing to watch it with money. And the cool thing about watching like money and finances is it's usually the same thing that's blocking in relationships. Like it's pretty universal. Yeah. So when you start to unblock one, the other starts to also follow suit a little bit. So that'll be a really fun one. And then there's really fun ones coming in the new year too.
That's so cool. So it's all like, that's up. Someone gets it, they pay, they get a code, they go on your site. Totally. And then it's like modules, or
no, I was really turned off by those. Like I watched a lot of things, and if anyone knows my site or my work, for the most part, I always stay super true to what feels good for me. I don't ever try to do whatever is the thing right now. It's so not my style. I'm pretty like OG about that. Yeah. And I started to watch like video versions and all these things. And I was like, because it couldn't hold my attention span. Yeah. And it was actually distracting. It was taking me more into my conscious mind rather into my subconscious. And then I actually had my girlfriend, who's an incredible breathwork teacher. If nobody's ever worked with her, her name's Lauren Spencer King, and she has a company called Fields of Study. And she launched, it was so smart. She launched her version of this for breath work. And I took one of her classes and I was like, oh my gosh, Lauren, like you solved all of my problems. The way you do this is so beta. It's so approachable. No like fancy, funny stuff. Yeah. It's just the work, and it's 20 to 30 minutes of your day, whatever the duration. Like some of mine have been 4 days. Some of mine have been 8. Which then, of course, they have access for a month to do on their own time. Tune in, however, from any device, their phone to their computer. And so when I saw that, it's like she expanded me. All the light bulbs went off, and I asked her if she wouldn't mind. Mine would be so different. But if she wouldn't mind if I created a version of that, which I'm a huge proponent. If you're going to rip someone off, please ask for their permission or don't do it. Like, period, and she was so beautiful and giving with that. And so what you do is like you would buy it, and if it's very close to the workshop, like, or during it, like right now there's the reparenting going on, and with that, right when they buy it, they just get an email with all the information and access, and they go in, and it's 8 days. So you'll start with the welcome page just to read through, and then you start with day 1's work, day 2, and it's only 20 to 30 minutes of work, and you can go through and as deep as you want, and people go pretty deep on these because it's like it's just light bulbs.
Oh my gosh, I want to sign up and do like all of them.
Do
You
them
have me
all.
convinced.
It's so fun. The last one, no, it was really fun because I was teaching. It's kind of it's passing lessons and tests, and no is the biggest thing you can do to create situational magnetism. And what I mean by that is you have like this little window of magnetism, though you didn't shift anything in yourself. Things are starting to show up. And why no is so powerful is because when we say no to things that are no longer serving us or making us feel good or that we're settling in, the universe it activates. It's like, oh, look who's stepping into their power and worth. I'm going to throw them some bones. So I always say, like, when you leave the relationship that wasn't serving you or the job or the whatever dynamic, or you stop the like shitty relationship you have with yourself, you know, there's so many different ways this can show up. It feels like there's a ship sinking, but that's not really at all what's happening. If you notice in a sinking ship in the ocean, everything in the ocean is coming to it. And so in that workshop, I was teaching like how to survey what needs to be out of your life, essentially, or what needs distancing or what needs communication. And a big component of working with the universe, I see it as energy. I just know the energetics of how it goes. My job is to distill that down into actionable steps so that people can do it. Because it's so hard to be like, go read the energy. It's like getting back to like, I don't know, the Higgs books. So what's the fuck is a vortex?
Yeah.
What
are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about? And so one component of working with no in the universe, it's actually your actions are far more stronger of a no than any verbal communication you could ever have. So I use the example of like, say it's the job and you've given your notice and you're leaving, but you're still doing consulting work for them on the side. Like you haven't actually communicated no. You're still like, I really don't trust the universe now and I need this little bit of money and I'm so small and little and, you know, and so that was a really fun one. And that was 4 days. And I mean, I still get people that will walk up to me on the street and was like, your no, when I figured out my biggest block, oh my God, and I got rid of it, this thing showed up and this happened and that. So they're so fun and they're like literally $58. Like it's something you would spend at Air One and 2 things, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, even more Air One.
I know. That's why I'm so passionate. And then another cool thing in the new year that I just got a consultant that's going to help me walk through all of this because I do not have the time to put it together myself, but it's going to be a page called The Tools. So it'll have like all the prior Unblocked classes and workshops. It'll have like my recorded, it'll just be tons of the universal tools. So that'll be a place where people can just like go and access. And if they can't get in for a session for 5 months, they can at least be productive during the meantime of just starting to do all the things. And it'll navigate them based on what they're calling in, what they think their blocks are. So that's a cool thing. That won't launch probably until January or February.
That's so awesome. I'm excited for that.
Thank you.
Aww,
so yeah, really fun things.
Yeah, I have to go like hang out on your website for like my entire weekend. I'll report back.
And like just know when you go, if you literally Google in manifestation or look at the old content, I give free content out once a week. It's once a week, whatever's channeled through me. Like, here you go. Here's some information on manifestation and what like is going on and you can do today. And it's not cheesy. Like last week was expanders. It really broke down like what they are, how to use them, approachable of like how to start bringing them into your conscious or your subconscious mind. So it's like, just tuning into that Monday post every week alone, you're going to start to get a process and a practice around it. And you're going to start to let go a lot of old superstition.
Okay, so one more thing. What do you think about Trump's manifestation skills?
Well, so Trump's a manifester based on human design.
Did you look into it?
No, Jenna, my lady, was telling me about it.
Oh my gosh.
And it's magical. So here's a big component that you're also going to get with me when you work with me, because my only job is trying to get people to integrate them into their full authenticness. So a lot of that shadow work. And when we're judging something, no matter how evil, insane, crazy, it's something we're rejecting in ourselves. I am not a supporter of Trump. I did not vote for Trump. I don't get behind anything he's doing. But I look at Trump and I'm like, look at that inner child that's running through the world. He just needs love. He didn't have attention growing. I can see it all. And him being a manifester. So my fiance is a manifester. He's an emotional manifester. And I always tell him, I'm like, Trump was a manifester. Hitler was a manifester. And they're so powerful. They're so powerful.
Yeah.
And I should let Jenna answer this better. But I obviously, when I take in information, I sit and philosophize about it. It's like another thing of being an Aquarius. And what she was telling me about it is like, they don't wait for downloads or signs or anything like that. They have a train running and either you get on it or get off. And so I could sit and philosophize about this forever because I sit and think about all these angles. But what was really interesting, we were visiting my fiance's mom at her home in Vashon. I think it was
Eric's grandma lives in Vashon, the same one, Maui and Vashon.
Oh my God.
She splits her time. Yeah.
She must be the most grounded human on the planet.
I'll have to introduce you guys.
Well, how magical that she gets to be your grandma-in-law.
I know. She's sweet.
So we were there and we had watched this YouTube video, and what it was titled, I want to say it was like 7 months before the election. And this video was titled, "Why Trump Will Win This Election."
What?
I know. And we watched it. I'll engage in anything.
Yeah.
You know, like a big part of breaking down my shadow and not judging anything is by looking at why that's triggered inside of me and what I've rejected about myself. And so whenever somebody's like, "Are you judging me for this?" I'm like, if I'm judging anyone for anything, it's because I haven't worked out something in my shadow. I'm at the place where I don't want to judge anyone. It doesn't serve me in any capacity, and it only reinforces my limiting self-worth on a subconscious level. So we watched this video and it was showing why his strategy was so powerful, right? Like, and that it shows as a society are so receptible to his strategy, which was so powerful as a manifester, that all he had to do was walk in and basically point a crazier, bigger finger at anybody else. It was like the perfect PR strategy on the planet.
Yeah.
And by it's what he's doing in his presidency now. He's like, look at this shiny object, idiots. And then here's what I'll get done in the background.
Exactly.
And that's what all he did during his running for office. He would be like, and what I like this person and yada yada, and breaking this person down. And nobody was too focused on him, or we didn't care as much about his downfalls, or we did. Yeah. But a lot of voters
when they were
didn't.
when they were pointed out, he would just like go point at someone else.
Distract. It's so smart, right? And so manifestors, what I take of them is they're so creative that way and so crafty that way. And now look, in office, he's not able to accomplish nearly as much as he was able to be doing on his own. So they're like lone wolfy, according to Jenna. They have a train that's running, and either you get on and go and join it or get off, because it's their train. It's how it's going to go. And that's how they get so much done and they make things happen. And this is my totally paraphrased version of what Jenna's told me. And she said, like, totally without emotion, she was like, now look, his hands are so tied when he has to actually work together with people. He's incapable of it in a lot of ways, unless the people are behind in the exact same way his antics, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how he's able to push power, but never in a direct way. It's never direct truth. Here I am. It's like all shadow, all manipulation. And it's actually like an art form to watch. If we can really rise above all the pain it's causing, all the trauma, the hurt, how bad it all is, if we can put that aside and just like rise above and look at it, it's an art form. He's a puppeteer. It's magic to watch. Like, it's black magic.
Yeah, totally.
It's so powerful. And so in terms of like getting back to manifesting, I like to always tell people this, like, to debunk another, myth. If you believe on an unconscious level that what you're doing is so right and so worthy, you can make anything happen, especially if you saw along his way. He was raised in an environment where he was constantly around politicians. He was groomed for it, or not groomed for being a politician, but very much around expanders constantly, right? And he was raised with a lot of the same Caucasian patriarchal programming of his worth and why he's so special on the planet. And then he has this like manifestor ability. So I always say people, it isn't about like thinking positive. Like a big thing people are afraid to do, right, which we've already talked about, is to be afraid of their negativity or their negative emotions. And if we could think and manifest anything, right? Like the world would just be chaos constantly. He, on an unconscious level, feels incredibly right about what he's doing, and he feels very worthy of it. And that's why he's so capable of doing these things. That's why it's like, you guys stop focusing on spiritual bypass, stop focusing on thinking positive, being in the vortex, start to focus on your worth, like your power, what is right, your subconscious structure of beliefs. Watch what you're capable of if you're expanding simultaneously. That's my thesis on him. Oh my
gosh, it's the perfect thesis.
And I don't actually judge him when I watch him. Like I have to disconnect a lot because I'm such a bleeding heart and such an empath, from animals to the earth to, so women. I have to disconnect because if I engaged in that deeper, it would consume me. It would be too much for me. And I can't, on a grand scale, do anything about his stance and power. All I can do is influence my community and people without defaming him or making him bad, because that's just more shadowy stuff. But when I stand back and look at him, I don't really judge him. I have a lot of sadness and compassion towards him, that he could be having such a full and real life if he had like that nurturing, or he had that accessibility or that want towards it. And that's just not his life. That's just not him in this lifetime or this iteration. And when he comes back, he'll be doing crazy other shit, like as he's evolving through his karmic paths. But I also am another firm believer that there will always be polarity on the planet. With dark, that exists Taoist
within us, so it's gonna exist outside.
Outside. And so the more that we can lean in and do our own personal work, I truly believe that's the most powerful shift on a grand conscious level that can happen for this planet, rather than like Trump's bad, like point the finger. It's like Trump's just a representative of a far greater thing that we need to shift inside of ourselves.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Thanks for the Trump lowdown. It's so good.
And like you, I grew up with a Muslim Iranian uncle.
I was super consumed in it.
I'm definitely not just like the white privileged girl who's like, I don't really care what Trump's up to. I'm like, no, it personally affects so many aspects in me, but a part of my work is to not engage, to focus on the shift inside, as well as teaching people to do the same.
Yeah, if everyone did something for climate change or whatever, then it wouldn't matter what rules he put in place, because we all made that decision within ourselves.
It's
so true.
Inner. Want to see the big shifts, look inside, period. Yeah. What can you do to yourself, to the planet, to the world? Yeah.
Like your, even your old landlord, like she gave a space to a dreamer, and like the things that we could do to support.
Completely. That can make such a trickle effect, right? I completely agree.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you for joining me. And I'm so excited to hang out on your website and just chat with you more too. I'm literally going to hang out on your website.
I love it. That's
what I'm
awesome.
Gonna call it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.